Hi guys, this is Mark McRae, and today I'm going to go back over the wealth pyramid. And the reason I'm going back over it is because I seem to get a lot of questions on it, and it's one of the things I work through with the group. So let's just start with the basic premise that nearly everybody at some stage in their life is going to start as an employee. So when you're an employee, you have the least amount of leverage because you're basically swapping time for dollars. In other words, there's only so many hours in the day and you give those hours to work for somebody else. Now that doesn't mean that there aren't people who have made millions of dollars being an employee. I mean, if you think of Tim Cook, if you are the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company, then that's one way of getting wealthy. But the majority of people, that never happens to them. It's kind of like becoming Tom Cruise or Brad Pitt. If you're an actor, it's like a very small percentage of people who do achieve that. But the next step is when people, and I think it's when they become uncomfortable with their life, or they realize that they're worth more, or they want to achieve something, they're working towards something. And then they become a solopreneur. So maybe they have a side hustle, maybe they're working part-time at something, they're working 9 till 5 for their employer, and then from 5 till 9 for themselves. Or maybe they've got a couple of people, they've left their job, and now they've got a business, and they are plugging away, trying to make a living. So at this stage, they're still very hard. Now, the next stage, stage number 3 is when you have a proper business and you have a team. And it can be anything from 10 to 100 to 1,000 people. But once you start with teams, you realize that your main job is actually building teams and becoming a leader. It's leadership that makes these things work. So the bigger, especially if you have a lot of people, you've got over 100 people, you can't, get involved too granularly with the people. It's more about getting everybody swimming in the same direction. It's more about being a true leader. And that's something else we will cover is leadership and how to control and lead teams. But that would be the next level. Now that's a level where most people, they either remain, and the majority of businesses in the first world, and in America and Canada, Australia, the UK, Singapore, most of those businesses will remain around about 10 people and reasonably small and won't make that much money. There's actually, it's often called a break point. It's a point a lot of people struggle to get beyond. And when you do get beyond that, the whole world opens up. Once you've actually got your marketing dialed in, once you're actually producing cash and you're trying to figure out what to do with that cash, and once your team is all in a line, it becomes fun. So it's a great goal to head to. Now I've gone through these 1, 2, 3. I've gone through all of these stages, and where I was at for the last 10 years is mergers and acquisitions. And what I've done is buy businesses. So I looked, rather than start a business, rather than be a startup, rather than come up with an idea, I looked to buy other businesses that are already running and have revenue. So what I'm essentially doing is exchanging cash for a business that produces revenue. And I think that's a very good way to go for a lot of people who are unhappy with their business at stage 2 and 3 and have a good background in operations or marketing and sales. It's not a great launching point for somebody who's never done a business. I've seen it done, and I've seen it done successfully, but there is a huge advantage if you've run multiple businesses and you have a good handle on how a business should work. When you go to buy other businesses, you know what to look for. Then eventually, if, and this is again entirely if people want to head in that direction, you could become a pure investor. And that's where I would like to be in the next 10 years, is probably investor, maybe take some people with me, but use the money. And it's really about distributing the money that we have into things that make more money. Now, each of these things requires a different set of skills. So when you're level 1 and you're an employee, you're basically taught a skill. When you're level 2, you've got to, it's about learning how to deal with people. It's about learning marketing. It's about learning sales. It's about learning operations. And most of the things you do, you'll probably do yourself. And one of the big things you realize is that your leverage is still very limited at that stage. It's also a stage where a lot of businesses fail trying to get to level 3. In other words, a lot of businesses would be better off with just 1 or 2 people than trying to get to level 3, because let's say you have a business and it's making $250,000 seller discretionary earnings. You're basically taking what you make to live on. To get to the next level, you've got to reinvest. You need better software. You need more people. You've got to invest in growth. That's going to take some of your profit in order to make it. And it's a point at which a lot of people become unhappy. They only become happy when they break through it. Mergers and acquisition is a different set of skills as well. There's a lot of accounting in it. There's a lot of looking at balance sheets, looking at profit and loss, looking at people, and looking how to integrate things. I find it a very fascinating subject. I've been fascinated with it for years. And even investing, you need a different set of skills again. When you're exchanging cash for yield, you've got to know risk profile and probability. And each of them, if I was given a choice, I would still try and rise up the pyramid, because I think there's more wealth, there's more freedom and more happiness there as you do that. Now, let me just move to the next slide. And the use of leverage, right? So let's say you have a business and it makes money. So you've got money and it's kicking off X amount of money. Now, what do you do with that money? You have to make a judgment call at that point. So let's say at the end of the year, you have $500,000 as a distributable income dividend cash, right? Everything's been accounted for, your depreciation, everything. You've actually got physical cash, and now you need to decide what to do with it. So now you have to look at where is a dollar best spent. So if you looked at the return on cash that you got in your business, and it's not unusual to have 100% return on cash in a business, especially online, but whatever that return is, you have to ask yourself, can I reinvest that money into the business and duplicate what I had? That's not as simple a question as you might think. There are reasons why there's restraints along the way and what you can do with that cash. But let's assume that you have maxed out all the levers, you've pulled everything that you need to do. Then you can decide, okay, let's take some of that cash and put it into investments. And then it's a question of how much does that investment return? Now, unlike a business, with a business you could, for example, earn $500,000. If you put that $500,000 into an investment, you're not going to get 100% in that. Let's say you're going to get 5%, so you make a $25,000 return on the $500,000 that you put in there. But it might require less attention to make that happen. And as you get older, you want to transition into things that don't require a lot of attention. If you've got your business to the stage where it's totally, running by itself, fine. Not many people get to that point. But at some point, you might have enough cash to put it into something else. It could be shares, it could be bonds, it could be property, it could be a multitude of different things. Now, those things, people like to call them passive income, and I do call them passive income, but the reality is there's no such thing as passive income. If you've got shares, you're constantly getting communication from the company or the broker that you're with. If you've got bonds, you've got renewal dates. If you've got property, you've got the broker who's dealing with you. There's always something to do. But the nice thing about investments is you can take a month or 2 or 3 months off. You can do it all by email. Then the last stage is, think of that, the money that you've made $500,000, you put it into investments, and that is, how do you put that in? It's asset allocation, right? So you want to try and find the highest yield that's safe. And in future videos, I'll go over where risk is as far as investments goes and how hedge funds and banks and people like that look at risk in order to assess whether an investment is a good or a bad investment. But think about this. So Warren Buffett, for example, Berkshire Hathaway, it might have income of $350 billion, right? Now, from all of its operations, it might produce distributable cash that it can do with other things, 5%, right? So 10% of 350 is 35 billion, is 17.5 billion. So each year, Berkshire Hathaway might produce 17.5 billion. That's a big number. You know, in order for Warren Buffett to move the needle, he has to buy big things. A $1 billion investment won't make a lot of difference to Berkshire Hathaway. And that's the ultimate goal, I think, for an investor, is to have a situation where you've got enough in your passive income bucket, your investment bucket, to just do pure asset allocation. And then once it produces a result, it goes back into other investments and the cycle repeats itself. You have your money machine. So the money machine starts the engine off. And if you can't find a good use for it in your existing business, it goes into other investments. Those other investments, you have to allocate cash to those. I remember watching an interview with Warren Buffett a few years back, and he says every single week he has to find a home for $100 million. That's what he does. He has to look through opportunities and assess risk and what he's going to do. So coming back to the beginning again, our wealth pyramid, right? It all starts with the idea that you're going to move yourself up this pyramid, and you've got to have a dream. You've got to have a vision. You've got to have a target. You've got to have something that you're moving towards in order to get there. You know, so you start as an employee, you start a small business, then you grow that business into a larger business, and then from stage 3, there's a lot of different directions you can go. Most people will never go beyond stage 3, not because there's more money in stages 4 and 5, but because there is as much money in stage 3 as there is in stage 4 and 5. And for me, for example, as an investor, I will probably make less money than I would in stages 4, mergers and acquisitions, in stage 3. So why do it? Again, it comes back to this idea of leverage. When you have at stage 1, you're an employee, you have virtually no leverage. And when you're at stage 2 in a small business, you have some leverage. Your staff is basically an extension of yourself. And at stage 3, the staff are basically an extension of your ideas and concepts. So you do have a lot of leverage there. But the most leverage I think you can get is as a pure investor, because with the click of a button, you can move millions of dollars. You can invest in something. You don't have to have a large team around you in order to make things happen. So a lot of it is personal preference. Where do you see yourself? What kind of life would you like to have? That's the fun in building your own future. If you like these tips, don't forget to like, subscribe, and contact me if you want to be part of the group that I work with that helps people achieve these different levels. Just go to markmcrae.com. Thanks for listening.